Africa is rising and you need to have a stake in its opportunities. It involves you knowing what business to invest in and, more importantly, how you do it. Join me on Doing Business in Ghana and let's talk some business. My name is Yao Kwanchiengi. Let's talk later. Hello, welcome to Doing Business in Ghana. Today we are looking at what you do in setting foot to do business in Ghana. Now, every serious company needs to be in the books within the economic region of where they operate. For example, in the UK, you know that the Companies Act 2006 governs businesses with about 224 policies. Likewise, to do business in Ghana, your name has to be with the Registrar General's Department, or what we call the RG's Department. Now, the Ghana Talks business team had a chat with Mrs. Jemima Ware, who is a Deputy Registrar of the Registrar General's Department, on all you need to know, registering your business and setting a foot to be here in Ghana. This is actually one of the foremost steps you take to be able to start your business. And so we started off looking at the varying business structures and how businesses are generally classified.
First of all, I need to state that the Registrar General's Department is the sole organization that registers businesses in Ghana, and the first stop for any business is with us. So we have about 6 types of business registrations. We have companies limited by shares, companies limited by guarantee, external companies, business names, partnerships, and subsidiary business names. Now, if we're talking of companies limited by shares, it could either be private or public. And basically, with a company limited by shares, we are talking of a minimum of 2 directors. 1 must at all times be resident in Ghana. A secretary should also be resident in Ghana. A minimum of 1 shareholder who really is the member or the owner of the company and normally appoints directors to run affairs for him or her, but it can also be a director as well. Okay. And that is for a company limited by shares. And then we have a company limited by guarantee, which basically is a non-profit making organization. The same applies, a minimum of 2 executive council members, a minimum of 1 subscriber, not shareholder this time, subscriber. And normally you find churches and non-governmental organizations registering a company limited by guarantee, or a club, or an association, or a foundation. That's a non-profit making type of organization. Then we have external companies, which is a company that is already incorporated outside this country, but has a branch in Ghana or an office in Ghana. So the liability or the legal status of that kind of company is, we just see it as the same company registered out there but having a branch here. So we don't see it as a Ghanaian company. Yes, so that's the difference. And so I'll give you the forms you need for that one. Then we have a partnership, which is a minimum of 2 partners to 20 persons, not beyond that. And that same status is also one of, is registered under the Incorporated Private Partnerships Act. Normally it is firms, bodies, associations such as maybe chartered accounting firms or architectural firms or legal firms that would register partnerships. Normally, that is it, because their liability is unlimited, but the partners have a day-to-day running experience with the company. They don't need to appoint directors to run the affairs for them. They actually get involved day-to-day running of the partnership. And normally, they have a partnership agreement that they would have to produce to us, which spells out all their responsibilities and how they should govern the partnership in terms of arbitration, if it is going under, or liquidation or whatever. Yes. So every partnership needs a partnership agreement. And then we talk of sole proprietor. That's one, I'm sure you hear of it, one-man business. Yes, that's a business name where one person, only one person, should own this kind of business. Then we have a subsidiary business name, which is a business that is owned by a company. So a company can own a business name, which is a subsidiary business name. And I mean, so it's like a business name is owned by an individual, but a subsidiary business name is owned by a company. For instance, I could have a company like, say, Joy FM. The real owner of Joy FM is Multimedia, but the subsidiary business name of Multimedia is Joy FM, but it's owned by a company. So sort of, you can use that as a brand. You know, you have a parent company, but then you use the business name as a brand. And that kind of registration to the liability is unlimited for the subsidiary business name. So these are so far the 6 types of businesses. Yeah.
Your business would obviously belong to one of these business type classified. That is the companies limited by shares, company limited by guarantee, external company, the business name, which is also called the sole proprietorship, subsidiaries, and partnerships. Now, there are regulations that guide the minimum stated capital of each of these businesses that I just mentioned. And so for every business, there is some stated capital that will be required of you.
Company limited by shares, you need regulations, which spells out, again, it's like a constitution of a company, who the directors are, the name of the company, the objects, who the directors are, the number of shares they are floating, who they've issued shares to, those normally are the shareholders, what kind of consideration have they paid, where is this company located. You need to provide us with a registered office, you need to provide a principal place of business, you need contact numbers, and you need a chartered accounting firm to give you a letter of consent. So that is, for a limited liability, you need regulations, the constitution of the company, and then Form 3 and Form 4. The Form 3 is normally giving us information on directors and shareholders and auditors and registered office and the kind of capital. That is for the Form 3. Okay. The Form 4 is a declaration that all the directors and secretary have to swear to before a commissioner for oaths that they've paid a certain minimum amount of stated capital. Because mind you, when you float shares and you issue out, you have to pay for it. And you cannot start with a company unless you paid a certain minimum amount. Now for Ghanaians, the minimum is 500 Ghana cedis. But a Ghanaian who lives abroad but wants to partner with, say, a foreigner, it's possible under a limited liability company, but the capital changes. Because the GIPC laws, that is Ghana Investment Promotion Council, specifically states in their laws that where you have a joint venture, that is a Ghanaian and a foreigner, and your objects are trading, that is buying and selling, importing and exporting, manufacturers representatives, general trading, any of those kind of objects, which is, it's seen as trading, the minimum equity for the foreigner alone is $1 million. That, when I say $1 million, what we mean, you don't pay that money to Register General, but that kind of equity has to be reflected against the shareholder's name. $1 million in Ghana cedis now is about 3.800,000. So that's the kind of equity that should appear against the name of the foreigner. If even there are 2 or 3 foreigners, they will all share in that. It's not that each foreigner has to cough up $1 million. No, we said foreign equity. The minimum percentage that can be given to the Ghanaian for that kind of company is 10%. And the Ghanaian cannot contribute to that 1 million. The Ghanaian also has to come up with his own capital. And that total capital, that 90% should still reflect a minimum of 1 million. So you have to work it out such that by the time we calculate 100%, Ghanaian having 10%, foreigner having 90, that 90 should reflect a minimum of $1 million. This new system now, you have to come up with a form of an identification to get a unique tax identification number. We are in collaboration with Ghana Revenue Authority, and it is one of the requirements that every officer of a company or a business must have a tax identification number. That tax identification number is generated by forms that have been given to us by the Ghana Revenue Authority. It is also on our website anyway. If you're outside this country, you can download those forms as well as our forms. Now you fill it out and attach a photocopy of your passport. In your case, because most of them are outside the country, I think the only means of identification will be the passport. Because those in Ghana, you can also add your driver's license, your voter's ID, or your national identification authority card. And now if you are living outside, you won't have any of these. But if you do have it, you can still use it because you're a Ghanaian that might have it, but most of them would not have it. And so strangely, what's going to happen is if you're a Ghanaian living outside, but your passport indicates that you're a foreigner, unfortunately, these GIPC laws will affect you. So even though you're a Ghanaian, you have to cough up about $1 million if you want to do trading, because the ID is going to come out as British or American, yes. But if you're able to come out with a Ghanaian passport, then of course you avoid this, headache of coughing up $1 million. That is for trading. But if you have a joint venture and it's for a service, that is $200,000 is what the minimum equity for the foreigner. But where it's a wholly owned foreign entity, then it's $500,000 if it is not trading. Whether it's a joint venture or not and it's trading, is $1 million. It doesn't really matter that you have a Ghanaian in there. But if it's a joint venture and you have a Ghanaian in there, it comes down to $200,000 if it is a service. If it is wholly owned foreign, and you can have a wholly owned foreign entity without any Ghanaian, and it is not trading, it is $500,000. So, and other issues are if you have a manufacturing company as the object, that one, these minimum equity levels I'm talking of do not apply at all. So so if it's, because the whole idea is you want to encourage, investors to come into our country to carry out various businesses. So if it's wholly manufacturing, then you don't pay this. So you can be a foreign entity, you can be a Ghanaian living out there, but a foreigner because of your passport. You don't pay this minimum equity I'm talking of. You can go as low as 10,000 and that is okay. Thirdly, if you are married out there to a foreigner, and there's evidence through a marriage certificate that you've been married for the past 5 years, then your wife or your husband, who is a foreigner, can also be part of the business without necessarily paying these huge minimum equities by way of marriage. So you have to bring a document to prove that you've been married beyond 5 years. Then you also be exempt from paying these huge sums of money, because it's quite expensive. If you look at the fees we charge for registering a company, we pay a stamp duty to the department, which is 0.5% of the stated capital, plus filing charges of about 330 Ghana cedis. So if you have a capital of about 3.8 million, 0.5 of that alone is about 15 to 16,000 Ghana cedis before you add the other filing charges. So it's something that most people should be really careful about before you come in. If you're coming in, the whole idea is they want to make the retail sector Ghanaians. So if you are coming in, you must come in big time, not small, joint ventures. No. You must come in big time, like the ShopRites, the game, and that level. In Ghana, Maxmart, Palace, they are paying these kind of monies. That's what they want. So they leave the retail sector to the Ghanaians.
Two major items I would want to emphasize here are that You would require a higher stated capital if you plan to enter the trade industry than if, say, you enter the service industry. Secondly, it is better to come in as a Ghanaian if you could prove that with your passport, because this reduces your barriers to entry in terms of the stated capital. Now, once these requirements are met, you need to look at what forms you need to complete and the actual physical process in getting your business duly registered.
If you are in Ghana, it's not so difficult because you can always come to offices and we have help desks. We have a customer service unit and all that. But out there, at best, it has to go through our online registration services, which we have just launched on the 14th of April. We have a website that you can get our forms from, and it's www.rgd.gov.gh. When you go onto that website, you can download our forms. We have downloadable forms. I was talking of the limited liability where I said you need regulations, Form 3 and Form 4. You can get it all over there. Every officer needs a tax identification number. You can get the 10 forms over there. When you have an organization that is outside this country, you can also get a tax identification number. But that organization would have to write to the Ghana Revenue Authority, the Commissioner General, requesting for a tax identification number in a company wants to take up shares in Ghana, because you can't expect us to get the directors and shareholders of the foreign company to get tax identification numbers. That would be ridiculous. So the company that is already registered out there that wants to take up shares in a Ghanaian company can request through a letter to the Ghana Revenue Authority through the Commissioner General requesting for a tax number. And on our website you'll find organizational 10 forms. So that organization will have to fill out the organization 10 form, attach this letter, and copies of their registration documents, photocopies. And they can also access the Ghana Revenue Authority portal. We are all on the portal and access the forms and also actually register for a tax number on the Ghana Revenue Authority portal. So once you're able to get tax numbers for all these people I'm talking about, these are officers of the company, then